Welcome to the 2020 Macon-Bibb Mayoral Candidates Forum, hosted by the League of Women Voters in Macon, the Macon, Georgia chapter of the Links Incorporated, and Georgia Women and those who stand with us. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The Links Incorporated is an international not-for-profit organization based on the principles of friendship and service. Local chapters seek to positively affect the local communities in which they serve. And Georgia Women and Those Who Stand With Us is a Macon-based nonpartisan organization advocating on issues of importance to women and the country. The objective of the organization is for women and other minorities to be integral participants in decisions made at all levels of our government. I'm Claire Cox, president of Georgia Women. Marty Copeland and I are happy to represent Georgia Women on the Forum Planning Committee, along with the president of the Links, Sylvia McGee, and League of Women Voters president, Mary Lou Ezell, and member Carolyn Hargrove. The Forum Planning Committee initiated our work in December of 2019, having no idea that the COVID pandemic would lead us to where we are today. As Sylvia is very fond of saying, we're in a new paradigm, and this committee has adjusted and responded to it rapidly. Personally, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have worked alongside and learned from this dynamic and committed group of women. Instead of gathering at the Douglas Theater tonight, we've convened all participants in a closed Zoom meeting and are streaming to you live via the Facebook pages of all three sponsor organizations. We're also recording the event and will make it available tomorrow by posting to a YouTube channel and sharing the link. Feel free to share the Facebook live stream or host a watch party on your page tonight or share the YouTube video tomorrow. If you share the Facebook live stream, make sure to communicate that all questions for the candidate should be submitted to middlegeorgiavotes@gmail.com. That's middlegeavotes@gmail.com. We will not be collecting questions from Facebook posts because of the numerous locations we hope this event will be streamed. The questions submitted via Middle Georgia Votes are being collected in a Google Doc by a team of screeners, one person from each of the sponsor organizations, headed by Marty Copeland and including Deborah Cockrell and Therese McGee. This team will sort the questions and group duplicates. The forum moderator will access the document in order to ask the questions. We're basically trying to mimic index cards in an audience. Be aware, prior to the start of the forum, we had already received more than 70 questions, so it is clear we will not get to all of them this evening. Many are duplicative or similar, so it helps us to know what areas are of greatest concern to our community. Thank you to the 5 Macon-Bibb mayoral candidates for agreeing to participate in this forum, and even more so because of the novel experience it will be. We're breaking new ground here in Macon, Georgia. In alphabetical order, our candidates are Lester Miller, Larry Schlesinger, Blake Sullivan, Clifford Whitby, Mark Whitfield. We're also grateful to have Rachel Gamble volunteering as our Zoom meeting manager this evening. Rachel is versed in all sorts of media platforms and has been an invaluable resource in this endeavor. You may hear or see Rachel during the evening if technology hitches require it. We don't want any candidate disadvantaged by the platform, and Rachel is here to help assure that. To the best of our ability, they are not. Carolyn Hargrove is experienced in candidate forums, maybe not in this format. Candidates are familiar with her paddles, which indicate 30 seconds and 15 seconds remaining, and a stop paddle. These will be visible on your screen and to the candidates. Zoom gives us the interesting ability to mute a speaker also, but we trust that won't be necessary and that all candidates will heed the stop sign when their time is up. Finally, this is a forum, not a debate. There will be no rebuttals. All questions will be put to all candidates. The forum's moderator will explain more about the format momentarily, and for now, I'd like to call on Sylvia McGee, president of Macon, Georgia chapter of the Links International, to introduce this evening's moderator.
Thank you, Claire, and good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm pleased to introduce the moderator for this evening's forum. Dr. Lori Johnson, a Macon native who returned home after being away for 20 years, is a professor and the Political Science Department at Mercer University. She holds a degree in Political Science and Economics from the University of Georgia, a Juris Doctorate from the University of Virginia, and a PhD from the University of California at Berkeley. Dr. Johnson, thank you for joining us, and I yield the floor to you.
Thank you, Sylvia. As Claire indicated, our forum format tonight is one of questions and answers that will be posed to each candidate. We'll begin with the opening statements. Those opening statements for each opening statement, the candidates will have 90 seconds each. The order of opening statements was determined by drawing prior to this evening. After opening statements, I'll be asking 5 prepared questions by the sponsoring organizations. For those 5 questions, the candidates will have 2 minutes each, and the order of answering will rotate with each question. After I ask those 5 questions, I'll be proceeding through the questions that we received by email, both before and during the forum. I'll get to as many of those questions as we can fit in. For those questions, the candidates will have 1 minute each, and we will continue to rotate the order of responses. After answering questions, we'll end with closing statements by the candidates. Closing statements, the candidates will have 90 seconds each, and that will be in the reverse order of the opening statements. We'll begin opening statements with Mr. Whitby.
Hello, I'm Clifford Whitby, and I'm a candidate for mayor of Macon-Bibb. I was born here, lived here my entire life. And like all of you, I'm concerned about the future of our community. I would like to thank the Links Inc. Macon chapter, the League of Women Voters, and Georgia Women for hosting this event. All of you realize there are serious issues facing our community. This mayoral election will no doubt be the most important one for Macon-Bibb. The outcome will likely determine the reality of our community for the next 2 decades. That's 20 years. As you all consider all the information that will be presented by myself and the other candidates, the important thing to note are who has the leadership skills to solve tough issues? Who has demonstrated the ability to build partnerships? Who have proven the commitment and dedication to community improvement for over 30 years? Who have the best plan to move Macon-Bibb forward? And lastly, who's been battle tested and ready to lead on day one? I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to having this most important conversation. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
I'm Lester Miller. Can you hear me okay? Good evening, I'm Lester Miller. I want to thank the League of Women Voters, the Macon chapter of the Links, the Georgia Women, and those who stand with us for this forum today. I'm honored to be here in your presence. Our hometown is the best place with the best people on earth. I'm from here, and I'm running for mayor because I'm determined to leave it better than I found it, for our children and our grandchildren. 51 years ago, I was born right here in Macon, Georgia, to a 17-year-old mother. My mom and dad worked hard. They struggled to make ends meet. When my mom came home from work after waiting tables, my sister and I would roll the change. They would roll the change that she had to pay our bills, so we could pay our bills. I became the first person in my family to graduate from Southwest High School right here in Macon. I went on to graduate from Mercer University and Mercer Law School. At age 14, I had my first full-time job at Bill's 1860. At age 19, I started my own business. Now I have 7 businesses that I have here in Macon-Bibb County. I've been pleased to work with the Bibb County Board of Education for 2 consecutive terms. And during those terms, I was president for 3 years. I was pleased to cut taxes twice and also to be able to increase graduation rates substantially. It's my pleasure to work beside Dr. Curtis Jones for Superintendent, National Superintendent of the Year, and to get his endorsement. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan.
Good evening. My name is Blake Sullivan. The pandemic that we've experienced has created a lot of pain and suffering throughout our country and right here in Macon-Bibb. I want to thank all of you for tuning in tonight so that you can listen to the candidates and make an informed decision for who you want to vote for as mayor of Macon-Bibb. Hopefully at the end of this evening, you will have looked at all the candidates and considered my answers, and I believe I'm the best candidate to lead Macon forward. My responses are rooted in being a successful small businessman and leading large organizations. And make no doubt about it, Macon-Bibb is a large organization. I know how to look at difficult problems, find creative solutions, and take action. That's what I do. I believe that my skills are what Macon-Bibb desperately needs right now. I want to lead our community. I want Macon-Bibb to be the #2 community in Georgia and the #1 community for all of our citizens. Thank you.
Rabbi Schlesinger.
I'm Rabbi Larry Schlesinger, and along with my amazing wife, Derry, we're the parents of 2 grown daughters. I spent my entire professional life as a member of the clergy, most recently here at Temple Beth Israel, and now I'm honored to be our candidate for mayor. I'm running for mayor because no one else in this race has the relationships that I do throughout this community to build the bridges among us that we so desperately need. I'm a proven fiscal conservative who will always present a balanced budget that's bona fide. I'm proud of my 100% record of fully funding local law enforcement, and I'm passionate about fighting blight, improving income inequality, and delivering vital services to our most vulnerable populations. Now, as a result of this COVID-19 outbreak and the shutdown and slowdowns that have followed, Macon-Bibb County will soon face a very serious revenue crisis for an extended period of time. But keep in mind that when the Great Recession hit in 2008 and revenue similarly plummeted, I am the one who was serving in local government at that time, and the lessons that I retained from that financial crisis will greatly benefit us all. So I'm asking for your vote for me, Rabbi Larry Schlesinger, as our next mayor of Macon-Bibb County.
Mr. Whitfield.
Good evening. My name is Mark Whitfield. And first, I want to thank the League of Women Voters, the Macon Chapter of Links, and the Georgia Women for hosting this event. I want to first say that I entered this race late because I looked at the field of candidates and I thought that I would be the best qualified to serve Macon as mayor and as their leader. A mayor's job is to protect and serve. And I haven't seen the protection or service that Macon citizens deserve. We are in the middle of a pandemic right now. And leadership has failed to protect small businesses, to protect the well-being of the seniors, the well-being of all of the citizens in Macon. We must understand that poverty, crime, blight is all connected. So we must understand that we must understand that we ought to protect and serve. And that's what a mayor must do, and I will do that.
Thank you, candidates. Our first question from the sponsoring organizations addresses the issue of crime. With the overcrowding of our prison system and the difficulties Macon-Bibb faces in hiring sheriff department staff, what initiatives do you propose to address crime? We'll begin with Mr. Miller.
What I've been saying for the last 2 years. As many of you may know, I am the only candidate that has been endorsed by the 3 local police and fire associations: Macon-Bibb County Firefighters Association, the Fraternal Order of Police, the Police Benevolent Association, because they know 2 things about me. They know they can count on me to fight crime, and they can count on me to fight crime in a smart way. One of the ways that I propose to pay, or at least several ways I propose to pay for more police officers on the ground. We're short 150 officers. Our county cannot afford to be short 150 officers, but we have limited funds to use. So if you look at my program called Justice Works, it's a program for nonviolent offenders who actually go to work during the daytime. They work a full-time job. They pay their room, they pay their board, they pay their transportation, and they also pay their child support if they have children. Meanwhile, at night, they come back to jail and they spend the night in jail. What this does, it frees up 25 to 30 officers that we would normally have at the law enforcement center guarding these inmates in jail. But it also gives them a job, a career, skills to go to. So we don't have a prison system that's overflowing with people. The other thing it does, instead of $55 a day, we only pay $20 a day to house these offenders. But what it does is keeps them from being homeless when they get out and being on the streets. It prevents them to have family members at home that are not getting the funds that they need. But it saves taxpayers money, valuable money that we need for other services. Justice Works will work. Another program that we can have, and I've talked to Sheriff Davis, and I've also talked to J.T. Rickerson, who's running for sheriff, is we can bring back some of the former officers that we've had. There are many officers that can come back, work part-time without the benefits and save the county money. Both of those programs together are $2 million in savings. We can do it. We just have to think outside the box.
Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. So I would like to start with remediating and abolishing the 2,200 blighted houses that have been identified by the blight study. Study after study shows that crime is reduced greatly whenever we tackle blight. And one of my goals is to do that within my first term. I want to hire and retain more certified law enforcement officers, and do that by going back and looking at our spending and cutting costs from places where we don't need to spend it. I want to work with the DA to get violent criminals off the streets. We have a number of warrants and subpoenas that have not been served because we don't have law enforcement, and it's important for us to get the violent criminals off the street. I want to improve jobs so that our young people don't have to join gangs. Right now, if a lot of our young people, especially our young males in the 3rd to 5th grade, are approached by gang members to be a part of that. They are desperately searching for somebody to give them some recognition. And the best way they've been able to find it so far is to join gangs. I want to turn that around and increase after-school programs like the Job Corps. I want to increase all of those faith-based initiatives and things that our churches provide to do that. And finally, I want to reduce human trafficking. It's a big problem in our county. We need to focus on that. We need to do more to help eliminate that in our county. Thank you.
Rabbi Schlesinger.
Thank you very much. The first thing we need to do is put more boots on the ground. I mean, we definitely need more deputies out on the streets. I would like to, maybe go back to the idea that you've got a neighborhood deputy who everybody knows and everybody can count on. And in order to do that, we're going to have to increase salaries up to a point where that's going to be attractive to the best recruits that are out there. But the bottom line is we need more boots on the ground to make this community safe. If you go to my website, which is larryformacon.com, you're going to see that I have a 5-point plan that is listed there in greater detail than I can say at this point. But let me put it this way. The 5 points are this. First of all, we have to put Macon's first responders first. And that is by increasing their salaries. We're doing a pay scale right now. It's supposed to have some results in a couple of weeks. And make being a deputy attractive in a way that it's a living wage job. You don't have to have another job. The second is to decrease gun violence. We all know what that has done to this community and what effect it has on us all, no matter wherever we live. The third thing we want to do is we want to invest in our youth. And one of the first things that I am going to do is to appoint an after-school and youth development council for neighborhood after-school activities and learning opportunities in our various neighborhoods for the 80% of the time that our students are not in the classroom. And I want to really plug into the Georgia statewide afternoon network. Fourth, we're going to implement real justice reform. I've been in touch with the DA about that. We certainly, I won't say decriminalize marijuana, but we made it a lesser offense within the commission. And 5 is to fight crime before it happens. And that is by really taking our students seriously.
Mr. Whitfield.
Well, we do need more officers. We're short on officers. We need another 100, 150 law enforcement personnel. And we need to make sure that they're paid fair wage. We need an increase in wage and be more competitive with salaries. But that's not the key. The key is not locking people up. The key is getting jobs and getting training. The education system is the key, absolute key. You don't find prisons filled with people reading at grade level. So we know we lose them somewhere around the 2nd, 3rd grade, and that's unacceptable. So it's a mayor's job again, and I say it again, to protect and serve. And although the school system is separate, we don't have any authority over the school system, we certainly have an obligation to work with the school system, to join with them and find programs that can help one another. So I want to have the after-school program that youth are involved, and I want to have all youth involved in the program without cost, and we'll find a way to pay for it. But every youth should have some type of enjoyment, some way to experience achievement, joy, self-motivation, learning about their self-history, their ancestral history. This will help the individual, the child, do better in school, have better academic performance. This will prevent them from going into the gangs and doing property crime and being less productive. So we want them to be productive. We have to do things to make them productive.
And Mr. Whitby.
Thank you. I take this question from a different perspective than I think the previous candidates. I think first responders and crime prevention is 2 separate issues. First responders deserve a fair wage, like every other hardworking Macon-Bibb employee. In 2014, when this community chose to consolidate, it operated under a 20% reduction. This consolidated government at the time made the choice to have an early buyout for officers, taking 70% of their pay and exiting. I think the number is somewhere around 80 officers at the sheriff department, somewhere around 70 of the fire department. But that's not fighting crime. If you go to my website, cliffwhitby.com, you'll see a 6-point plan that was developed by stakeholders, clergy, business people, youth directors, coaches. If we're talking about fighting crime, well, we got to go where the crime is. We got to go where it starts. We got to go to the root cause of crime. I think one of the candidates mentioned education. Of course, education is the key. Proper education. Of course, parent engagement, providing resources to our families is the key to preventing crime. Going into innovative approaches to dealing with youth at an early age, partnering with our community directors. These are all things that we can do, and it can be done. Not just paying an officer more money. How is that preventing crime? That's not preventing crime. All that doing is policing crime. What we're talking about doing is a holistic approach with families.
Thank you, Mr. Whitby. We'll move on to our next question. It involves civil rights protections. Georgia does not have general civil rights protections for its citizens. We depend on federal civil rights protections. Many municipalities in our state are passing protections on a local level. What is your feeling about a Macon ordinance for local civil rights protections regarding housing, employment, and accommodations? We'll begin with Mr. Sullivan.
Good, thank you. So everybody in our community deserves equal access to justice, to housing, to jobs, and all other opportunities. And I believe under the law, they have that. I want to be sure that we look with an open arms and be able to provide those opportunities to every man, woman, and child in our community. Right now, Macon government is not well represented. We don't have a lot of leadership by females, and I want to do more of that, have more women in government, more women in business, more women serving our community. I think we can achieve equal rights if we all obey the law and do what is necessary to provide freedom for everybody who chooses to act in a way that honors the laws that are on the books. What's happening over in Glenn County today, where an unarmed man was gunned down in cold blood, that's an abomination. And it's shameful for that community not to have prosecuted that case earlier. We cannot have blind DAs and police officers who turn the other way when a crime is committed. We need to fully investigate those. Our DA needs to fully prosecute it. And we need to do everything in our capability to make sure that we are colorblind, regardless of who is committing a crime, who is trying to find a job, who is trying to buy a house. And that's what I'm committed to do. Thank you.
Rabbi Schlesinger.
Thank you very much. The killing of Ahmed Arbery just shows us how important an ordinance like this and even more really is. One of the first things that I am going to do is I am going to put together a human rights council. I served on such a council in Richmond, Virginia. And what the council does is it gives effect to the rights of every individual to equal economic, political, and educational opportunity, to equal service and protection by public safety. It would advise the commission itself, including the mayor, on ways to eliminate prejudice from our community and discrimination simply because of one's race or color or creed or religion or marital status or sexual orientation or gender identity, or if you have a disability. I would even go further and say, that the state of Georgia does not have a hate crimes law. And even though this is, sort of beyond what we do in local government, I do think that we need to get behind every effort to take this to Atlanta, to the state capitol, and have a hate crimes law passed so that we can join the rest of the country, basically, in taking a stand against what are heinous crimes, so that somebody like Ahmaud Arbery will not be killed in cold blood ever again in the state of Georgia.
Mr. Whitfield.
This topic is very important to me. And you can have 5-point plans, 100-point, 1,000-point plans. All those plans, it doesn't matter. It's what's in the heart of people. And in Macon-Bibb, I see that there's a change. That's for the positive. So yes, we should have civil rights laws on the local level. That's fine. And I think we should implement those. But from what I see is, as a matter of public policy, it's the community who decides what's really important. So what I want to see is more opportunities for individuals to receive mental health counseling. Because when you have violent crimes that took place, that take place in our communities, most of the time it's not because it's a hate crime, it's because someone has a mental health issue. And that's what needs to be addressed, is mental health. Yes, there are racial discrimination, there's racial prejudice, and we can work through that. I mean, Macon doesn't have those issues where you have officers killing young men. We don't have that, and thank God we don't, because I think we're heading in the right direction. So we need to focus more on getting our youth stable with mental health counseling because of the violence that they see, the violence they experience, the negative experiences they have as human beings. That's what ends up producing hate. So racial discrimination, yeah, you can't make that go away. You cannot eradicate that. That's a heart issue. And you can't policy it away either. You can't make policies to make it go away. So I do agree a hate crime needs to be signed, and I do agree that we should have a local civil rights law. And
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. We'll move on to Mr. Whitney.
Civil rights. You know, what happened in Brunswick happens in this country over and over again. This goes to leadership. This goes to why there is a national push for criminal justice reform. The platform we launched in October centered around equity, fair play, balance. If we can't expect fair play when a man just jogging in a neighborhood can be gunned down, and it takes nearly 2.5 months for the family, the grieving family, to receive any measure of justice. I do agree, it's a hard issue, but we have a responsibility as leadership to make sure we have the right judges, prosecutors, people in place. And that's exactly what the top elected official of any community set the tone for. So what I have to say on this matter is that Whitby administration would do everything it can to work with the community to demand justice.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
This is a very important topic. One, it hits home to all of us here in Macon-Bibb County, especially with our crime rate that we've had. But more importantly than that, the Lester Miller administration will not tolerate any discrimination. You can look at my past record. You can look at my track record. Look at my record on the school board, Bibb County School Board. What you'll see is we've already passed legislation already in our policies, way before the county has. We've already got a policy in place dealing with these issues that we're talking about today. So discrimination is something that will stop in my administration. In regards to the Glenn County situation, I think this is something that we can rally around together. You're talking about bringing people together. This issue should cross all party lines, all racial lines, all gender lines, all discriminatory lines. This is something we can rally around. I think everybody can see with their own two eyes that this unfortunate incident should have, could have been avoided. It's wrong, plain wrong. The Lester Miller administration would not put up with this, would personally get involved in a situation to make sure justice is done. The district attorney in Glenn County should be terminated, fired, investigated. I've watched the videos, as many of you have watched those videos, and I think we can all agree that it's reprehensible. But what we have to do is we have to come together. We have to be one. I've shown as a member of the school board that we can pull a group together. When I got on the school board, we had 4 African Americans and 4 whites. We had a tie vote the first time. The leadership's about pulling everybody together and coming together for common ground. And common ground is exactly what we're looking at in Glenn County. We can find common ground, we can rally the troops, and we can beat this together. Thank you.
Our next question from the planning committees involves blight and sprawl. Macon has a problem with business blight and sprawl. We have empty and deteriorating business sites all over Macon. What factors contribute to this, and how do you plan to address business blight and sprawl while still making Macon an attractive and energetic city? And we'll begin with Rabbi Schlesinger.
Are we talking about blight itself or to the business community in particular?
The question addresses the business community in particular.
Okay. We have a number of tools that we can use and that are in use at this point. We've set up tax allocation districts, which have certain tax advantages to people who set up businesses in there. We have business improvement districts as well. The Eisenhower Business Improvement District is perhaps the most active and most well-known, but these districts can be set up anywhere in the city. We have opportunity zones that we try to attract investors to come and invest in places that could be, for all intents and purposes, very vibrant and vital. We need to really focus on making sure that we are able to attract the kinds of businesses that are going to flourish here in Macon-Bibb County and use these tools. I will continue to partner with the Industrial Authority, which has done tremendous work in terms of bringing large-scale industry to Macon-Bibb County. I will continue to partner with the Chamber of Commerce, and I do believe that the business community can serve a very, very important purpose in mentoring some of our students who are coming through. We want to create entrepreneurs, and who better to create entrepreneurs than people in the business community who have been successful themselves. So we've just got to use the tools that we've got and really promote them really throughout the country, because we are a very, very special place that has a wonderful future. We just need to move forward as quickly and as completely as we can.
Mr. Whitfield.
Okay, well, I may not be liked after I say this, but I don't care, because I care about the people of Macon-Bibb first. If the Industrial Authority has done such a great job, where are the jobs? There aren't any. It's a lottery system when you have a large employer come in and offer jobs. It's a lottery system. And the same people are left out over and over again. That's part of the reason you have the crime. It's part of the reason you have the blight, the violence. Because those who are left out are the ones who have stayed on the bottom. They don't have the opportunities. And if they have a record, then they definitely don't have opportunities. So we seem to put them away like they don't exist. But they do exist. And most of them are African-American males who are felons, who have a difficult time finding jobs after they make a mistake. So no, they're not going to have those opportunities when those big companies come in because they're not going to hire them. But they are a part of Macon. They're a part of Macon-Bibb. So now we have families who have just single mothers now. And they're earning the best they can, usually not a living wage. And we have a workforce development program here that is failing. Workforce development in Macon, Georgia is not what it should be. And we have to do something about that. So yes, we can have enterprise zones. We can have federal opportunity zones. Those are opportunities for us to bring in investors in areas that have underdevelopment, blight, and so forth. But we must have a strategic plan to involve all of Macon-Bibb to have economic success and opportunity.
Mr. Whitby.
Thank you. And I do believe this question is on residential blight. I'm sorry, commercial blight. Commercial blight is a byproduct of the economic situation in a community, our community. As chairman of the Lead Economic Development Arm, the Macon-Bibb Industrial Authority reinvented economic development to the tune of nearly $3 billion with the companies. But no, waiting on big companies to come in is not going to address commercial blight. Addressing the economic issues in Macon-Bibb will address commercial blight. Tooling our entrepreneurs, our young people, providing them with the resources. They are models that show that this will be productive. We have models that demonstrate that we can address our commercial blight as well as our residential blight. But we have to work together as a community and strengthen our agencies that's in charge of commercial development. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Several of the candidates talked about multiple issues, but the question is about commercial blight. Commercial blight is a huge problem in Macon, and it covers many facets. Number one, Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority does have a Macon Bright program that's been adopted by the county as well as the school system to help start this process, to issue a tax freeze to encourage businesses to come. You can already see that on Pine On at the old Westgate. So things are happening now. We have to go a little bit deeper. I live out in South Bibb County, lived in Bloomfield most of all my life. You look at the Macon Mall area, you look at the Target, you look at all those areas there, and people are getting upset because everything that we have on that side of town is leaving and going to North Macon. And you ask yourself, why? Why are these companies building these buildings and then moving to another part of the county? Well, there are several reasons. When businesses want to come here, they look at the housing around there. They look at the amount of income that a person has. But they also look at the crime rate. When I spoke to thousands of people when I've been running for office for the last 2 years, I asked them, why don't you go to the old mall? Why don't you go to the S&S in Bloomfield? Why don't you go to these places there that's been forgotten by this administration, near Sam's and Target and Presidential Parkway? And they all tell me the same thing. It's crime. Crime is the problem. You can throw all the money at the problem you want to, but until you address the public safety, you're not going to do the issue of crime. You're not going to take care of the problems that we have with companies leaving. Under a Lester Miller administration, we're going to fix that crime problem. And like I said in my commercial, we won't lay one more brick until public safety is fixed. And I mean that because we have to get this under control. Another thing we have to do is we have to look at the policies for planning and zoning. They're outdated, antiquated, they need to be revised. And this administration has done nothing but encourage that to happen. So under Lester Miller administration, we will fix the problems at planning and zoning. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan.
From occurring. I'm the only candidate that's been out there in this pandemic trying to save our small businesses. I co-founded the Macon 30-Day Fund, and tomorrow we will have given out over 60 small business forgivable loans of over $118,000 of donations that have been given to this fund. So that's the first thing that has to be done, is we've got to be able to protect our small businesses to stop blight. Secondly, we've got to go out there and make sure our kids have a good education so we can have a quality workforce and get more jobs. That's why I worked hard to put Leader in Me, a leadership program in every Bibb County public school that we have. I want our kids to be able to think about what they can do. I want them to have a purpose for going to school. And if we have a qualified workforce, we can turn that into having successful businesses and take back in some of the blight. And yes, we've got to stop some of the crime. Like I said, tearing down structures or remediating the ones that can be fixed has to be done in order to eliminate some of the crime that we've got going on. A lot of our businesses have been moving up to North Macon, and those same businesses now have sprung up in Houston County. And so the revenue that we once got when they were at Eisenhower now is split between two counties. We have to repurpose our Eisenhower buildings. We have to think differently about how we're going to do that. And we have to take action to make sure planning and zoning uses the buildings and the spaces that we have that can accommodate businesses, and stop trying to force them all in one side of the town where we don't have the infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Our next question from the Planning Committee involves budget and budgetary priorities. With the recent history in Macon-Bibb of raising property taxes and reducing public services, what are your budgetary priorities when it comes to balancing revenues and expenditures? And we'll begin with Mr. Whitfield.
Well, the first thing that I want to do is make sure that the budget is in line with the goals of the city. And in my review of the budget for the past 5 years, I just don't see that. So there's going to be a shortfall. It's going to continue to be a shortfall. And with this pandemic, it's only going to be worse. So we can make budgetary plans, but if there's no money, no tax revenue, then it doesn't matter. The key right now to meeting our budget or setting a realistic budget is generating revenue and generating tax revenue. And that comes from being creative in creating businesses and creating opportunities for businesses. So through tourism and through strategic business models, we can generate revenue that we can focus on the budget. And for its priorities for the budget, to me, always public safety and bringing in jobs, workforce development, programs that deal with police activity league and protection of children, public safety with respect to roads, interstate, even things with potholes. I mean, those are things that are just basic, and they should be something that is responded to very quickly, but that's a part of being a public servant. And responding quickly to the needs of people that's what that's a mayor's job. So that's what I would do.
Mr. Whitby.
Yes, thank you. One of the things I'm proud of, when I took over the chairmanship at the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority, Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority was operating on $250,000 a year annual appropriation directly out of the digest. When I left the Industrial Authority, we had over $10 million in surpluses over the next 10 years, I do believe. What we did there was we found creative ways to grow the pie. We found creative ways to promote Macon-Bibb a different way. You cannot expect to continue to have services increase and cut taxes if we don't have somebody experienced at growing the pie, not just redividing, not just reallocating. We will have to go through line item by line item and identify the things that can be dealt with. I mean, collectively, together, the mayor along with council. We can do this, but we have to have somebody that have the ability to come up with innovative strategies to increase the revenues that's coming in. And you cannot come close to addressing those issues when we continue to lose our young people as they matriculate through high school and college and leave because there's no opportunities in Macon-Bibb. We will lay the foundation to retain our best and our brightest and find ways to support them so that they can stay in Macon and lend their particular gifts and talents to Macon-Bibb. We can grow this pie with the right leadership, and as mayor, we will grow this community. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
When I was elected to the school board and took office in 2013, the school system faced millions of dollars in shortfall, some because of misappropriation of funds and some because of just plain out corruption and theft. That's horrible. We are facing another budget crisis similar to that now because of the COVID situation with loss of funds. We need a mayor that has a proven track record of cutting taxes. I've done that twice. And I've done that by making some hard decisions that needed to be made. We had to furlough teachers. Do you know how hard that is? We went to propane buses to save money. We took all the steps necessary to save money. This commission and this mayor now is going to have to make some tough decisions, but I don't know if they have the backbone to do that. We don't want to get shut down like we did a couple of years ago. One of the ways we can increase revenue is through the OLAS. No one's talked about the OLAS now because it's failed the last 3 times because we have a failed leadership. I can get that done. I can get that done with bipartisan support. People tell me it's revenue neutral. You know what I tell them? Who cares? The taxpayers need to be revenue neutral. They need their money in their pockets. I trust them to do what they need to do with their money as opposed to what a government wants to do with their money. I can get the OLAS passed. We can build a coalition of bipartisan support to make sure that 100% rollback goes to our taxpayers. That'll give money to the community. What do we do about the budget? I've already talked about Justice Works. The program will save $1.5 million and still put police officers on the ground. When you say, what is my budget priorities? I've already told you. Public safety is job 1. Public safety is 1, public safety is 2, public safety is 3. Everything evolves around public safety. You talk about poverty, you talk about education, you talk about blight. All that centers around our crime and the need to decrease that. And the only way you can do that is get some more boots on the ground and get more people in jobs. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan.
Good. Thank you for the question. Macon-Bibb is suffering a great shortfall in its revenue, and it's projected to be down at least 14% in the next budget cycle. We cannot raise taxes. That's the wrong ingredient for this problem, and we've got to not do that. Too often our county commissioners have said that's the easiest thing to do, and I'm against that. I think we can fix our budget problems by saving our pensions and reforming them. Right now, our pension plan is over $80 million in debt. Our retiree health plans over $140 million of debt. And the next fiscal year, we will pay a little better than $25 million out of our budget to pay for the retiree costs. We can't afford to do it. There's some sensible reforms that we can undertake to do that so we can save our retirees pensions and we don't have to harm them. But we've got to be able to work on this one problem or else we will bankrupt our community. The other thing I want to do is bring in zero-based budgeting, where every department looks at what their needs are and not their wants. So they start with a zero budget at the beginning of the year and build that budget up based on their needs. And then we see where the wants are and other things. We need to refinance our debt. We have the lowest rates ever right now, and we can do that. And we need to look at our contracts and see if we can renegotiate them for a cheaper rate. And we can't afford to let $3.9 million of license fees go uncollected. That's shameful, and we need better processes to do that. I plan to do that and make sure our government is efficient. Thank you.
Rabbi Schlesinger.
Thank you. The most important thing for any government to do financially is to at least maintain a balanced budget. And frankly, the discussion or the shutdown 2 years ago for me was not a question of mass transit or closing libraries or anything like that. It was an issue that we had, as the commission, had been presented with 3 balanced budgets by the administration 3 years in a row, each of which turned out to be a deficit budget. And I was not going to approve any budget moving forward simply because I had no confidence that it was, in fact, a balanced budget. So what government has to do is maintain that equilibrium. And to tell you the truth, the last 2 years, we had over a $10 million surplus last year, and we were on that route this year. It's going to be interesting to see what COVID-19 does to that ultimate figure. But ultimately, the departments, the services that government has to provide to the public are these. Number 1, public safety. Number 2, sanitation. Number 3, public works. And number 4, especially in this environment, we have to have public health be one of the major primary services that we offer. If, as we're going to experience, we're going to have a shortfall in revenue, then in order to maintain a balanced budget, we're going to have a cuts in our expenditures. It's just as simple as that. It's not rocket science. The budget has to stay balanced.
Thank you, candidates. Our next question, and one we got quite a few about from the citizens as well, is poverty. Macon has a 28% poverty rate, double that of the national average. How do you plan to work collaboratively to address the issues and challenges that poverty presents in our community? We'll begin with Mr. Whitby.
Thank you. As I said earlier, as the chairman of the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority, I changed a lot of the inner workings. We changed a lot of the inner workings. We completely revamped the lead economic development arm and had the most successful years in the history of the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority. You can't begin to talk about poverty without talking about inclusion, without talking about bringing people, allowing people access to the resources that are right here. In our administration, we will partner with all of the authority and agencies and insist that we look at all of the options that are on the table. When you're talking about entrepreneurship, when you're talking about unleashing the raw, natural imagination of our young people and our people in this community, period, whether they're 25 or 75, we've got to find innovative approaches to dealing with this. We can't just rely on bringing in big industry to address the poverty issue. I'm very proud of the work that we did, but it is not enough. And partnering with our community is the key to unleashing that raw, natural instinct in all human beings to create and develop. And I believe a Whitby administration would be just what it takes to unleash that and support this community as we revamp economic development across county lines. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you. As most of you know, discussion of poverty is not theoretical to me. I grew up in poverty. I overcame poverty. Of course, poverty looks different to different people. I'm a white male in Macon-Bibb County. That has a certain connotation to it coming up in Macon-Bibb County, but I've lived in 7 different places in Macon-Bibb, attended 7 different elementary schools before going to Southwest. You build relationships with folks. You see what happens in their households. You see what's on their kitchen table. You see what shoes they wear. Poverty is something that we have to join forces. It's nice to have these big industries coming up. We talk about all the businesses we brought in here. Let's talk about where those jobs are going. We need to make sure that the jobs in Bibb County are going to people who live in Macon-Bibb County. When you want to address poverty and jobs, what about a novel idea? You bring a big company and stuff, give them a huge tax break. Why don't you make as an incentive to give down payment assistance for people to buy or build homes in Macon-Bibb County? Let's go one step further. Instead of giving tax incentives on the backbones of our hardworking people here in Macon, why don't we include some transit money as a tax incentive for the company that's coming here can match those funds, even if it's $100,000. So the people in East Macon can accept that job at Amazon or Irving. We need to get people to work. Work will lift people out of poverty. Education is also the key. And as I've been on this whole night discussing about the education that we've done with the Bibb County school system, you can't forget, men earn more than women. The poverty rate in women is concentrated in the early mother ages. So we have to make sure that our women have childcare so they can go to work, but they also have an education so they can have better jobs, high-paying jobs. And that's what you'll see in the Lester Miller administration.
Mr. Sullivan?
Good, thank you. Poverty is a great scourge in our community, and we must do better to combat it. Over 6 years ago, I recognized that education was one of the ways we could get our community out of poverty. And so I started volunteering and helping out our schools, public schools, to be better. One of the things we initiated was the Leader in Me. I raised over $2.8 million to fund that in every Bibb County public school. I believe when we give children the chance to become leaders of themselves, that anything is possible and that they can aspire to learn new skills and new jobs that are necessary to get them to better their lives. I want to continue that, working in education, but we also need to provide training. We have some great institutions here, but a lot of our people can't get to and from these institutions so that they can get the training they need, because our public transportation system has been woefully underfunded. Best example I can give you is Amazon. When they moved here, we gave them an amazing tax break. They built a cover so that public transportation could drop off people to and from work. Instead of running a bus there, we decided that we were going to let other counties import jobs into that institution, and we failed to provide that. I want to provide more transportation. I want to provide more services in our neighborhoods that don't have them, especially grocery stores and financial institutions. I want to be able for our citizens to prosper in each neighborhood. And I'm committed to doing what I can to break the cycle of poverty and encouraging our faith-based organizations to do more. Thank you.
Rabbi Schlesinger.
Thank you. Personally, I am embarrassed that 1 out of 4 people in this community is living at the poverty line or below. That is simply unacceptable. And in a lot of ways, for the entire community, it's an embarrassment. It's disgraceful. We got to change it. So we need to acknowledge and address the economic disparities that exist primarily along racial lines. The only cure for poverty is jobs. And we're talking about living wage jobs, not burger flipping jobs, but living wage jobs where a person can actually have a family. So we have to do 2 things. Number 1, education is going to be the most important thing. We have to develop a workforce that is going to be capable and prepared to compete and function anywhere in the workplace today. Our schools have improved, but our student reading levels and graduation rates are still not where they need to be. The second thing that we need to do is to focus, again, on economic development. We need to partner, again, with the Industrial Authority. Whatever they bring is a blessing to this community. We need to partner with the Chamber of Commerce. We need to make sure that our institutions of higher learning are the best we can be. We've got so many things that are going for us here. It's our fault that 1 out of 4 people in this community is living at the poverty line or below. It's our fault. We can change it. Let's get to work.
Mr. Whitfield.
That was so good.
Yes. First, I want to apologize to Rabbi Schlesinger. I didn't mean to attack you. That wasn't my intent with that. I'm just passionate when it comes to issues of poverty and individuals not having opportunity. So that's what's really making me upset. We have a pandemic right now. So we have small business owners who are about to lose their businesses or who have lost their businesses. We have people who have been laid off and now they're facing poverty. We have individuals who are already in poverty. So I'm hearing a lot of discussion, but this has been going on now for 30 years or more with the poverty. And now we have this added issue of small businesses having this trauma to their families, this financial crisis, which is now added to this problem. So what do we need? We need a plan to come up with true strategic business models to generate revenue so we can stabilize small businesses. Because small businesses are the backbone to the community. So I've done things in the past. I wrote the workforce development program for Macon. I was instrumental in bringing the PALS program as it is, and was being very successful in Macon. And I have innovative and creative ideas to bring businesses and also create jobs ourselves through the municipality, that the municipality can create with the resources that we have.
Thank you. Candidates, we're going to move now to questions from the audience that have been submitted both before and during the forum. I remind you that the response time for these questions is 1 minute per candidate. Let's start with a question about tourism. Surrounding communities have recreational and entertainment venues, sports stadiums. What will you do to improve the quality of life in Macon for its residents and also attract tourists? and the money that they bring with them to the community. And we'll start this question with Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Well, of course, the most obvious answer to that question is our location. I mean, location, location, location. We're in the heart of Georgia. You can't get anywhere without coming through downtown Macon. And the best part about that, especially after this COVID crisis, there's going to be a lot less people that are wanting to fly away and go long distances, and they can get here from anywhere within just a few hours. I've had several conversations with Gary Wheat and members of his staff there, and they do an excellent job in tourism, but we need to get better. Hotel motel tax is going to be suffering for a while, so we got to be very creative and very innovative. One of the things I've talked about is making sure that we become the music capital of the world again. The previous administrations, we lost the Music Hall of Fame. Look what just happened. One of our gospel just passed away a few days ago. We need to bring back the Music Hall of Fame to Macon-Bibb County. And we need to rally around those things and go back to our heritage, and tourism will once again thrive in Macon.
Mr. Sullivan.
We are a good tourist destination because of our location, but we're even better because of the people that live here. One of the drawbacks that we have is that we have some of the highest property tax rates around. So we keep the musicians and the artists and all of those who work so hard to ply their craft. We make it difficult for them to live here. We make it difficult for shops to open up. We make it difficult because we don't have the public transportation to go to a lot of our museums, the Tubman and the Sports Hall of Fame or other places. We need to do a better job of welcoming people to our community, and I'm committed to doing that.
Rabbi Schlesinger.
Thank you. I really believe that we have a lot to offer, and we've got about 6 million people or so who are sitting 85 miles up the road that we just have to give a good reason to get in their cars, come down, spend a day in Macon, spend a weekend down here in Macon. That is our market. I sit on the Visit Macon board, so I know exactly what Gary Wheat and company are doing. One of the things that I was really working on was having a gaming tournament come to Macon that's sort of been sidelined by the virus. But we are in a great position. I want to establish a music commission in addition to that Human Rights Council. The filming industry is down here all the time, bringing people to here. We have so much going for us. We just need to get out from under this virus, and things are going to start jumping with tourists, because that's a revenue stream that we need.
Mr. Whitfield.
Youth activities is the key. And the program that I want to implement is for all the Macon youth to have an opportunity to participate in a sport or some activity, whether it's an instrument, art, whatever it may be. And we will foster that. We will offer an after-school program that will allow them to grow and develop in that particular sport or art. And that will give them some stability with respect to having structured activities. But with respect to bringing in revenue, I want to have competitive teams that we send out throughout the nation and that we host tournaments. So we become the city that hosts tournaments, whether it's cheerleading, basketball, football, softball, flag football, and we will build the revenue that way. And then going forward, the tourism will build on top of that.
Mr. Whitley.
I love about being home. This is home. We have a tremendous history here. A Whitby administration will build on our assets. We will partner, we will continue to partner with the Harriet Tubman Museum, the Grand Ole Opera House. We will continue to partner with the Douglas Theater. We have a great legacy here. We can do things. We sit in the heart of Georgia. people pass through here by the thousands. We got to give them a reason to get off those exits and come visit and enjoy some of our assets that we have. But building from the partners that we have in place that do a tremendous job, we've got to support them, and the Whitby administration will.
We got quite a few questions from the audience about COVID-19, and I know several of you have mentioned that already. One of the questions we got was, how do you anticipate being able to maintain essential government services if there were to be a resurgence of the virus in the fall and winter? And how would you decide when to close or reopen the county if that happens? We'll start with Mr. Sullivan.
Good. Thank you. So this has been a major pandemic, and it has caused a lot of pain and suffering to all of our citizens. So we've got to be able to make sure that we keep our employees healthy, but we've also got to make sure that our community is healthy as well. Everybody second-guessed Governor Kemp when he opened up Georgia. I believe what he did was look at the best available information and make the decision that he did. I was in favor of that. I believe we need to use the best available information and use that to determine what to do as far as our employees go, what to do as far as our budget goes, and then make the necessary arrangements to pivot from that should the need arrive.
Rabbi Schlesinger?
Thank you. I was the first elected official to call for the closing of bars and restaurants. If you remember, I answered one of our primary services in a previous question is got to be public health. So we have to take that as seriously as possible. I am not in favor of shutting down, but if it's in the best interests of the public, then I think that that's a decision that we may have to make moving forward. We're dealing with so much that we just don't know right now. I don't know what's going to be a week from now, much less a month from now, or 6 months from now. So we're just going to have to, play this by ear because we are in totally uncharted territory, and but we need to make sensible decisions that will benefit the populace.
Mr. Whitfield?
I see that we put economics ahead of public safety. That's what I see. And thank God that we had responsible business owners who, if they had to open because of personal reasons or because their services were needed, they were very responsible in opening their businesses. So I'm happy. I see the cases are still rising. I'm very concerned about that. But we're doing what we have to do locally. And I'm proud of Macon-Bibb for what they've done thus far with social distancing and their efforts. And I'm very proud of the small businesses. And my prayers are still going out to those who are in the medical field and those who are essential to the function of the community. But right now, I'll just say that we continue on and be as safe as possible.
Mr. Whitby?
Health and safety first. I understand the economics of the crisis. I'm married to a medical physician. She took an oath, as all the doctors did, to first do no harm. And that's where we must come down when we make these type decisions. There are so much about this pandemic that we don't know, that we must be mindful of. This has done a lot of damage, even right here at home. So I come down on the side of precaution and be very mindful of the ramifications, the health and safety, following the CDC recommendations and putting health and safety ahead of economics. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
One thing's for certain is we can't play this by ear. We have to be coming up with a comprehensive plan now. We know it's here. We know it's not going away overnight. We have to plan now, and we have to get everybody on board. Forget about politics. Let's bring the medical people in. Let's bring the business community in. Let's come together as one. The school system did this in the beginning. We didn't wait for Governor Kemp to tell us we needed to close schools. We closed schools so it's the right thing to do. But guess what we're already doing? We're already planning for next year to start the school open. And if the school is not ready to open in, guess what? We have a contingency plan on what's going to happen to educate our students and how we're going to carry out those resources, including making sure that they have meals and making sure there's education going on. You have to have the contingency plan. But to do that, you got to have the proper leadership. The Lester Miller administration will not be silent. We will be at the upfront. We will communicate with the public, and we will be there each and every day to make sure that Macon-Bibb County is protected.
We've talked some about economic development already, but we've had several questions from audience members about economic development in East Macon, South Macon, and West Macon, and what you would do to incentivize development in areas besides downtown. Rabbi Schlesinger.
Well, we are a family, and every neighborhood counts, and nobody in this town is expendable. We just have to use the tools that we've got in order to attract business. I would like to think that we could find investors who would invest in bringing these areas back and up to what I would call a living wage kind of a presence in the community. We just need to work together and find ways to make these things happen, because no neighborhood is expendable, just as no person in this community is expendable.
Mr. Whitfield.
We have to have federal dollars to help us, in addition to being creative ourselves locally. And it's not an easy task. It takes planning, and it's not overnight. But generating revenue for the city through youth activities, through hosting tournaments, hosting events, that is the way to start. And then from there, we can help provide more of a larger budget for economic development, to loan money to new entrepreneurs or existing entrepreneurs to expand their existing businesses. But we have to understand that is a growth process, a creative process, and we have to make decisions together. And a lot of this is going to come through SPLOST, some through grants, some through federal money, but we have to agree that we agree on the plan in place and follow the plan.
Mr. Whitby.
Yes. One of the things and one of the strategies of a Whitby administration, again, is investing in our community. This is a question that we have the ability to address and deal with. We support our community and unleash that raw, natural, creative ability to go into East Macon and support those who want to be in East Macon, who want to provide jobs, who want to provide products in East Macon, and treat East Macon just like we treated the 2nd Street corridor, the downtown redevelopment plan. This is not rocket science. We have a model that works. We revitalized downtown. We revitalized Bill Hill. We can do this. A Whitby administration will support our community.
Mr. Miller.
One thing is for certain. One thing for certain is you have to be intentional. We were intentional when we created the downtown atmosphere that we have, and it's a vibrant community now. You can use best practices. I happen to be on the Newtown board, and I know what works. We can do the same thing in East Macon, South Macon, and West Macon. It's a proven plan that works. It's about using best practices if you're intentional about it. Look what the school system did. We invested in the Northeast and Appling High School and middle school there because we wanted that community to be able to grow and people to be able to sprout around there and homes to be able to create it. We got to provide transportation to those areas, but we also need to tap into the Chamber of Commerce. We haven't talked about the Macon-Bibb County Chamber of Commerce. I happen to be on that board. It has 1,000 businesses that it works with each and every day. What about business incubators on Pionona, on Houston Avenue, in Village Green, that young people can get access to capital and grow their own business?
Mr. Sullivan.
Good, thank you. So I think the biggest thing we can do is remediate the blight and tear down structures that can't be rehabilitated. Remember, once we stabilize neighborhoods, then investors will move in and invest. That's common knowledge, and we can do that. The other thing we have to do is make sure we provide transportation, public transportation to these areas. You know, we don't run a bus to South Bibb. We don't run one to Geico. There are a lot of places where we don't have public transportation. You can't expect an area of town to thrive without city services being run to those areas and making sure the people who need them the most have a way to get groceries and financial services and improve their quality of life.
Thank you. Our next question is about priorities for downtown. We had several people ask about what your priorities would be. The perception is that currently the priorities are residential lofts, fine dining and non-fine dining restaurants and other establishments serving alcohol. Would those continue to be your priorities for downtown development, or would you focus on other areas? And we'll start with Mr. Whitfield.
The culture of Macon is rich, and we have an awful lot of talent in Macon, and it's whether it's in all genres, with music, art, we can have festivals. The Cherry Blossom course is one of that's great. But we have a lot of history here that we can celebrate, and it's not just about having a good time with alcohol or with parties. And we need to actually teach our youth and our children about our history and celebrate that culture and then market that culture. So Macon has a lot to offer, and we just need to market our city and the culture of our city.
Mr. Whitby.
Yes, I think the first priority of a Whitby administration really would be to stabilize our investment. We have a significant amount of community resources invested in downtown. I was a part of that coalition that came in when downtown was a ghost town. We've invested because I do believe an urban core is essential for a thriving city and a thriving community. But we won't just focus on downtown. We must work with East Macon, with South Macon, with West Macon, with Bellevue, with Pleasant Hill. We must work with all of these communities. But the good thing, the good news here is we have a model that we know work. All it takes is being intentional about going into these various communities and finding those right stakeholders and partnerships. And we can do that. A Whitby administration will get that done.
Mr. Miller.
The very short answer is retail. We've got plenty of restaurants, we've got bars, we've got other things in Macon. But I remember a long time ago, and I say a long time ago, I'm only 51, but my grandmother would get with me over on Bellevue and get with me on Belmont Avenue, and we'd get on the bus and we go downtown and we go shopping. And we would shop at Woolworths. We would go in there and spend a dime or a quarter. But I remember those things, and people used to go downtown and shop until the mall came. We have to establish retail downtown. All these other things that happen, we also got to have a clean environment downtown, a safe environment downtown, Right now, we're short on officers in downtown too. So if you want to kill an urban core that we've got going on down there, then don't have any police officers down there. We also got to do more things like we did with Warner Robins Air Force Base with Blue Sky Software to bring these guys from Warner Robins to Macon to live and work downtown as well. That will help us all from a tax standpoint, and we can duplicate those things all over the county, but we're talking about downtown in this question. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. Downtown has done remarkably well, but I think the one thing that is missing is a grocery store. If we're going to continue to have residential lofts and other places where people live, they have to have access to groceries, and we don't currently have a sustainable grocery store there. Other thing we're lacking is parking. We need to do a better job of providing parking for the visitors who come downtown. I think that's critical for us. And then finally, I'll say is that we need to be more welcoming. We need to have better signage. We need to pay attention to our public buildings and make sure that they're well taken care of. And we need to make sure that our trash and other things are well picked up and that we have a beautiful downtown. And we need to translate those into the rest of our community, not just downtown.
Rabbi Schlesinger.
Thank you. I am pleased that I have represented downtown since I was elected to the Macon City Council in 2007. I mean, it's just amazing what has happened down there. And it's sort of happened naturally. Newtown has been a big help down there. Anybody who knows anything about economic redevelopment knows that it starts downtown and it radiates out. So prior to the virus, things were going great guns down there. Things have slowed down. I tried to help the restaurateurs myself, but we're going to need to come out of this. But if it follows a natural course, then those areas that are contiguous, such as Tyndall Heights, Pleasant Hill, and Fort Hill, are going to naturally be the next areas of development. But I will work with any group of investors to invest money in the business climate of any neighborhood in this county.
Thank you. We got quite a few questions about budget issues for Macon-Bibb County government, but some of those questions focus specifically on the interests of the employees of Macon-Bibb County. People were concerned about fair pay scales. They were concerned about pension payments and raises, and basically the idea of how you would pay for the services that are provided by Macon-Bibb County employees. We'll start with Mr. Whitby.
Thank you. Let me first say, everybody that works for Macon-Bibb deserve fair compensation for their service to this community. And the Whitby administration would be on the front line of making sure pay scale, but also just treating our employees with dignity and respect, all of our employees, our first responders, as well as everybody that represent and serve this community. We also know we have a disparity between equal pay. I will support the fair wages for women just like I would anything else. I believe we have got to level the playing field. Equity, balance, and fair play will be the focus of a Whitby administration, and it would translate into every area. But yes, we must support our employees. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
All of our employees are valuable, and each one of them bring a certain thing to the table. In any budget situation, you have to have priorities. And those priorities sometimes can make tough decisions. With the Bibb County School Board, we have priorities in our budget. When we looked to give raises, we gave them first to our teachers, and we gave them to our Board of Education police officers, because the safety was a concern for our students in our classrooms, and the education was a concern for what happens in that classroom with the child. We have to do the same thing with the local government. Public safety has to be a priority. The reason we don't have a pay scale is because they go through all this work, they spend all this money, they get to a sticker shock because they never figured out to start with how much it's going to cost them. We can't continue to kick the can down the road on public safety. It has to be a priority. And in our Lester Miller administration, we will find the money without a tax increase to get it done. I've got several plans out there. I'll be happy to debate any of these gentlemen here tonight on how those plans are going to be effective and how we're going to pay for it.
Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. Our employees are very, very valuable, and I'm in favor of paying them what they're worth. I don't want to pay them more in retirement than we pay them to work for us. We should have a pension system that rewards them greatly while they work for us and pays them a salary to do that, and let them set aside their own retirement money while we give a small match to help them get to their goals when they're retired. So that's one of the things I want to do, is to make sure our budget is righted. To do that, we need to spend on needs and not wants. That's why I said I'm in favor of zero-based budgeting, to make sure that we hit the targets of the things that we need to spend our money on and stop spending money on things we can't afford. Thank you.
Rabbi Schlesinger.
Thank you. All of our county employees are very, very special people. And I don't think that they always get the credit that they need from us. And I don't think they get it from the public either. But nevertheless, they are entitled to the same things that you and I, who maybe work in the private sector, are entitled to. And that is a good pension payment. I sit on 2 of the pension boards that are very, very well funded. We went within the new county employees from defined benefits to defined compensation, which is going to save us some money. But our employees are what makes the city work. And the administration, I had a conversation just a couple of days ago, is committed to this pay scale study that we've been involved in probably for the last 6 months. And we'll get the first report in the next couple of weeks. But from what I hear, they are very committed to implementing it. And I'll support that.
Mr. Whitfield.
I'm a retired banker and investment license for years. And I don't want to set false promises. You can't make money just appear. Of course, the workers deserve raises. So you have to have a mayor who is creative and has a team around him to help generate revenue. And that is stabilizing small businesses to generate revenue for you. We cannot have pay raises. We can't have lower taxes. We have to be realistic and stop just giving dreams without giving the truth. And the truth is, you must generate revenue. You have to have strategic business models in place. And that's the only way you can speak about giving raises that are meaningful raises that will help someone reach the living wage.
Well, it wouldn't be a local election without a question about potholes. We got quite a few about roads, streets, water infrastructure, as well as transportation. So in general, what would be your priorities for Macon-Bibb infrastructure, and how would you effectuate those priorities? We'll start with Mr. Miller.
Thank you. And I can relate to that problem. Having living out in Lizella, we have potholes about every 10 feet. One of the things about consolidation is Lizella, in particular in South Bibb County, got all the taxes, but they got none of the services. Our roads are horrible. It's been neglected for a long period of time. When I go down Houston Avenue, those roads are neglected. I think roads are going to be one of the first priorities we have. The Bibb County has already given over to the Macon Water Authority, the stormwater issue that we have there, and you'll be getting a nice bill for that soon. But we're going to have to take care of our roads program for sure. The Jeffersonville Road project has been going on for too many years, 16 years, and this county commission can't appropriate the funds necessary to make sure that happens. Look at Bass Road, it's exploding. We're 6 years behind the times on putting transportation out there, as well as roads and improvements that we need in that area. We can't wait 2 or 3 years to do right-of-ways. We need a mayor that's going to act now and act fast. Quit giving me excuses, let's make things happen, and I think I can do that.
Mr. Sullivan.
Potholes are a big deal, as are our roads. I was surprised to learn a few months ago that Macon-Bibb found a lot of roads that the DOT didn't even know about. That's shameful. We ought to do better than that. I believe in using technology like geographic information systems to map out every road that we have, to find out where the potholes are and to prioritize the ones that need to be worked on first. Then find out ways to go out there and get to work and remediate that. For too long, we just ignored the problem. We can't do that anymore. I want to bring technology to bear so that we can do a better job at lower cost to fix the things that need to be fixed.
Rabbi Schlesinger?
Well, the number one complaint I get is about potholes. And I will tell you that I turn around and I will talk to our public works people, and those situations will be addressed. The important thing for anyone to do is to report these things, because we don't necessarily know that they're out there. See Click Fix is a great way to do that, or call me and I'll turn around and make sure that you get some action on that. Public Works is one of the essential services that government absolutely positively has to provide to its citizenry. And potholes is just one of many different services that Public Works does. But, communicate with us and we'll be glad to address those concerns. There is a list of repavings that are going to come down the pike. So I don't have that in front of me, but call me. I'll let you know which roads are next in line.
Mr. Whitfield?
Efficiency of service. There's no excuse for taxpayers to have to keep calling over and over again about potholes, having unnecessary car repairs, and of course they can't be reimbursed because no one's going to take their call or take it seriously. So this is a non-negotiable for me. I'll have a task force that responds to that. If you have a call about a pothole, it would be resolved within 48 hours. That is a non-negotiable for me. As a Whitfield administration, I can guarantee you that you will not have to call us over and over again about something like potholes, trash, abandoned buildings. We will make that a priority in my administration.
Mr. Whitby?
Clifford Whitby administration, this is an infrastructure question. We have to properly prioritize these infrastructure questions. Potholes, hazardous sidewalks where children are walking to school, seniors can't get out and about because of some of the hazard conditions. We can prioritize this fairly, as it's been mentioned, Jeffersonville Road, the various issues out there on Bass Road. This is just a matter of a efficient and effective administration prioritizing the issues that are concerned to our citizens and our residents. Clifford Whitby administration will make sure our citizens will be on the front line and being at the table addressing these issues.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses. We're going to move now to closing statements. I'll remind you that you have 90 seconds each, and we're going in reverse order from the opening statements. So we'll start with Mr. Whitfield.
All right. I'm the only candidate with a financial background. I have written the workforce development program for Macon. I was an integral part of bringing the PALS program to Macon. And I sat on the board with the workforce development and youth council for many years before administration change took place and I was no longer on the board. I can promise that I will do everything in my power to generate revenue through the airport, through tourism, through different models. And one thing that I want to do that's different is that I want the municipality to own at least 2 manufacturing businesses. I want us to own it. That would give Macon-Bibb perpetual revenue. As long as we can manage it and manage it properly, we will have revenue coming in from Macon-Bibb for not just a generation, but for your entire posterity. That is what we have to do in a post-pandemic era. We have to look after ourselves because the federal government is going to look at the credibility of your mayor, the integrity of your mayor, and will determine what type of federal funds you're going to receive going forward.
Rabbi Schlesinger.
Thank you very much. And thanks so much to the ladies groups who have enabled us to gather together tonight. Despite this COVID-19 bump in the road, we have so many assets that bode so well for the future of Macon-Bibb County. We have our central location in the state, the junction of interstate highways, a seemingly endless supply of water, renowned colleges and universities, the quality of our hospitals and medical care, our film industry, our music industry, our tourism industry. We're a straight shot from the port in Savannah, and we are very, very close to the busiest airport in the world and the state capital city of Atlanta. I mean, that could be no better. But I have long maintained that our greatest asset is our people, and that Macon-Bibb County is a lot more diverse than we typically imagine, because we have large and growing Latino, Indian, Asian, Muslim, and LGBTQ communities that significantly contribute to our local economy and our quality of life each and every day. And I am the one who has built relationships within and bridges across them all. United we stand, divided we fall. So on or before June 9th, vote Rabbi Larry Schlesinger for mayor of Macon-Bibb County.
Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. I want to thank the host for conducting this forum tonight. Y'all have done an amazing job, and I appreciate that. So the problems that Macon-Bibb faces, there's no mystery to that. We all know what they are. The question is leadership. I'm a proven leader. I've led one of the national organizations. I've led state organizations. I've worked hard as a volunteer to try to improve our community. I'm a man of action. I know what it takes, and I'm willing to work hard to make this the #2 city in the state of Georgia and the #1 city for our citizens. I'm happy to be on the ballot. I'm asking for your vote. I believe we can do better, and I'm committed to making us one of the best communities out there. It's going to take everybody working hard. I know how to analyze the complex problems. I've rethought all the ones that we brought up tonight. I have plans, not promises, and I want to work hard for every citizen of Macon-Bibb. But to do that, I need your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone for putting this forum on tonight. But I'll leave you with a few questions. When you're sick, where do you go? You go to the doctor. When your car needs to be fixed for a new engine, where do you take it? You take it to the auto shop. We need to listen to people who know what they're doing. We talked about the COVID crisis earlier, and we are in challenging times. Who should we be listening to about the health care, the medical facilities, the medical experts? So the question is this: when we're talking about public safety being the #1 issue in Macon-Bibb County, who should we listen to? Who should we listen to? I've been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police. Who should we listen to? I've been endorsed by the Police Benevolent Association of Georgia. Who should we listen to? Right now, there's a 10-unit fire in East Macon as we speak. Right now, our men and women are risking their lives, and they're asking you to support Lester Miller for mayor. Who should we listen to? We talked about education all night tonight. Dr. Curtis Jones, the 2019 National Superintendent of the Year, has endorsed Lester Miller. Who should we listen to? The question is simple. I've been through a crisis. I've managed a crisis. We don't need an outsider who knows nothing about government leading us in the wrong direction. The time is now, and the time is now to vote for Lester Miller for mayor.
Mr. Whitby.
In light of this current economic downturn, we know there will be winners and losers coming out of this. As I stated in my opening remarks, this upcoming mayoral election is critical. The outcome will likely affect this community for the next 20 years. Consider where we are and consider where we were and where we are now. The need for clear direction and leadership is even greater now. This is about which side we will be on, Macon-Bibb, the winning side or the losing side. Now you have heard from me and all the other candidates. So ask yourself, can I really afford not to go with the one person who have proven the skills and the knowledge and the know-how to create an economic turnaround in the midst of this crisis? Who has spent his life doing the work for our community and building community relationships? Who have demonstrated their leadership and skills to solve tough problems and bring people together? Who's battle tested and ready to lead on day one? I will let my record speak for itself. I'm committed, vested in you and your success and your family's success. Vote for Clifford Whitby for mayor. I pledge to you, when I become mayor, I will transform Macon-Bibb into a thriving community and one that you will be proud to live in. Please, thank you for listening and visit our website, cliffwhitby.com.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for your participation tonight. Thank you for the people listening. Regardless of who you vote for, please go vote. I'm going to turn it over to the president of the League of Women Voters, Mary Lou Ezel.
Hi, I want to thank everyone who has participated in this event tonight, all of our candidates, all the people who have joined us on Facebook to see this, and all the people who sent in extra questions. We had lots and lots of good questions, and we appreciate you being involved in that. I also want to let you know, if you know anybody who missed this live presentation tonight, they can see it tomorrow on YouTube by going to any one of the 3 sponsors' Facebook pages. So just let them know they didn't miss out if they can see it again on YouTube. And of course, I want to recognize the sponsors: League of Women Voters, Macon Chapter of Links Incorporated, and Georgia Women. And I want to tell you that these same sponsors are going to sponsor a criminal justice forum in 2 weeks. So be looking on your Facebook and also in the newspaper for more information about that. It will have the same format as this evening, and it will be for the sheriff's candidates and for the DA candidates. I have lots of other thank yous. I certainly want to thank Rachel Gamble for being our Zoom manager. Believe me, we wouldn't be here tonight without her. She's the only one that knows how to mute us and unmute us to get us right. Also, Susan Long for being our media coverage person. Of course, Lori Johnson, our moderator. Thank you, Lori. And a special thank you to all of our 5 candidates. We really appreciate that you chose to participate in this event. I think you've done a great service to our community by being here this evening. And so, our evening has ended. Thank everybody for being here, and good night.